Yo, what's up? I'm just gonna do a quick intro about the 5 link situation, what happened while I was recording this video. Then I will let you watch the clips, and then the full build guide will begin after the boss clips. There are gonna be everything as usual, including feared. So yeah. So I was preparing this character, it was very late, I just finished Path of Building everything, and I was like, okay, I will just wear all the equipment, the gems, everything, and I will just continue the next day. It was like 2 a.m., in the night, alright? So I was a little sleepy, I was just getting all the gems, something like that. And I made a mistake and accidentally used crit strikes instead of crit damage. So you are gonna say, alright, that is not a bad gem, it just provides crit strike chance, what could have happened. If you are familiar with Ice Spear, it has 2 forms, and after traveling some distance, the second form actually happens, and it actually has a higher crit strike chance. Because this is already a crit build, with that second form, my Ice Spear crit chance is already 100%. So that's why crit strike chance support, crit strike's gem, actually doesn't do anything for this build. But if the bosses are closer to the totems, maybe they are getting hit by the first form of the skill, then that works. So in the end, this is something like a 5 link, maybe a 5.5 link, let's say, not a 6 link build. If you manage to put, totems, I don't remember, just check the clips. If most of the clips are with the totems far away from the boss, that means that it is a 5 link. But if they attacked from the close range, that is actually a 6 link build. So you decide. So enjoy the clips. So in the end, I actually messed up and played with the wrong support gem. In the Path of Building, it says around 5 million DPS loss. So that is huge. So enjoy the clips. I will be back after a couple of minutes and explain everything you need to know. Alright, I'm back. So the first thing I'm gonna say is you can play this build as an Hierophant Templar or Ascendant Scion. Since I already leveled a Scion this league because she got some good opportunity to play different kind of builds. Because of the new Forbidden Flame and Flesh jewels, you can actually pick more Ascendancies. So the thing I picked was like 10 Chaos because no one plays Totem builds. Let's just check the first of all Ascendancies. But yeah, you can also play this build as an Hierophant. Maybe it is even better, maybe not. I don't know. I haven't done the path of building. It is your job to do that if you know what you are doing. But this is going to be a Scion Ascendant guide. So first of all, let's take a look at the Ascendancies and the Forbidden Jewel combination I picked. I picked Hierophant because this is like 10 Chaos. The both colors were 10 Chaos. So that is going to be a cheap. +1 Totem. This is a Totem build obviously, so that makes huge difference. Damage taken is taken from mana before life. So this is not a big of a deal because this is a Devouring Diadem build. Meaning that we are not using any mana, but obviously Energy Shield protects our mana. So the Mind over Matter actually protects us. You know, still works, but we are going to take damage from Energy Shield instead of mana. So having good Energy Shield recharge, let's say, is going to help us to sustain our Energy Shield. So while playing this build, make sure you avoid maps with degeneration modifiers, such as all monster damage hits, you know, ignites you. There's a mode that is just exactly as I called it. All damage from hits ignites you, something like that. Also, there is monsters poison on hit. So these two modifiers, because the character isn't ailment immune, I'm just immune to shock and freeze. We still get it by ignite, let's say. So that's why ignite plus poison, we are obviously not immune to poison. Those modifiers actually makes this build hard to play in those kind of maps. So make sure you roll those two modifiers, ignite on hit and poison, because it just blocks your energy shield recharge. Because you will take that 8% of damage from mana, which is energy shield. So that simply messes with your energy shield pool, let's say, also a mana pool. All right, so make sure you avoid those two modifiers. Arcane Surge effect for more DPS. Arcane Surge is a buff that grants you mana regeneration and more damage. Gain Arcane Surge when you or your totems hit an enemy with a spell, so that's gonna be your Ice Spear totems. So this build have easy access to permanent Arcane Surge, which also has more effect thanks to the Hierophant notable. The things that I actually picked on the talent tree, because this was the Forbidden Jewels. Deadeye, effect of your marks, which is going to be Sniper Mark, because this is a projectile spell build, and Sniper Mark is the best curse choice for most projectile builds, because it grants more projectile damage taken by the enemy. Additional projectile, Ice Spear is a spell that can actually shotgun. There are not much skills in the game that can actually shotgun, but Ice Spear is one of them. So more projectile means more DPS, obviously. You and nearby allies have Tailwind. I believe this doesn't work, but I am not 100% sure. Because in Path of Building, nothing happens once you put Tailwind. Yes, you summon the totems faster, but maybe that action speed, so it is actually more cast speed for the DPS, obviously. Maybe it doesn't work, I'm not really sure. So I just picked this for the effect of Mark and additional projectile. If you are sure that Tailwind doesn't work, maybe pick another Ascendancy, but +1 projectile and effect of Mark still grants huge DPS. That's pretty much it. And finally, I picked Elementalist. Shocks from your hits always increase damage taken by at least 10%. Even if you are not dealing much lightning damage. So make sure you maybe put some lightning damage on an Abyss Jewel or something, because normally this is a cold build, so you are not dealing any lightning damage. If you put a little bit of, you know, lightning damage on an Abyss Jewel or maybe a jewelry, something like that, you can actually shock for 10% all the time, which is 10% increased damage taken. I also use a lightning golem, which grants you a temporary aura, I believe, from time to time. That also adds a little bit of lightning damage, so that way you can also shock. So yeah, free 10% damage if you can get that lightning damage, so make sure you do that. Cannot take reflect elemental damage. Unfortunately, this doesn't work for totems. So totems still get wrecked in elemental damage reflect maps. So make sure you roll those maps. Do not go for reflect maps. So that is bad news. Exposure you inflict applies an extra -20 to the affected resistance, which is gonna be cold. You can use obviously cold penetration awakened support gem, which lets you apply exposure, because that is what the awakened gem also provides. If you still don't have the budget, but this is like a 1 exalt gem, by the way. Also use a frost bomb. You need to use that yourself. Frost bomb still works because you don't have to hit the target for the exposure. On the other hand, wave of conviction doesn't work because you need to hit. So totem builds cannot use wave of conviction. I actually made that mistake maybe 1 year ago on one of my totem builds. And people were like, why are you using wave of conviction? It doesn't work. And I was like, yeah, it works. But no, it doesn't work because I was an idiot. So yeah, wave of conviction doesn't work, but frost bomb works. And I also double checked it. I'm sure that it works, alright. So start with frost bomb, later on use cold penetration awakened once you afford it. And +1 to golems. So I used lightning golem for cast speed and that red aura for lightning damage for that shock. And also, let me just check the other golem, stone golem for regeneration. Because this is a totem build, you cannot leech or anything. You need to be a chieftain if you want leech. By the way, yeah, because yeah, I just mentioned it. There is also chieftain ascendancy on Stygian. That also grants 1% damage dealt by your totems leech to you as life, which is a huge recovery for your character. So maybe if you think you need more leech regeneration for your character, this is a good choice actually, but this doesn't provide much DPS because it provides fire damage and 10% strength, which won't do anything at all. I'm just checking in my Petop building right now, my DPS doesn't even change because this doesn't work for Ice Spear. So for some reason, if you want maybe more healing, pick Chieftain, but you will lose DPS, alright? So these are all the ascendancy points and the forbidden jewel that I just mentioned. If for some reason Hierophant becomes more expensive, maybe use Elementalist or other stuff, but Deadeye is super expensive, so you need to make sure you get it from the talent tree. Elementalist was like 2 exalt or maybe 1 exalt, so maybe you can also check that, but again, Hierophant was 10 chaos when I bought the jewels. That's why I picked that. So, Ice Spear totems, I don't know, I already explained a couple of the gems and stuff. Let's just jump straight to the equipment section. Maybe I will just explain more gems if I see necessary. So this is a spell totem build, so we need spell damage, cold damage to spells. Cast speed is super important because totems by default are actually slow. And also crit damage, projectile damage, maybe double damage if you can do that, but I believe I don't have much double damage. So first of all, let's start with the core item. Soul, Mental, Body, Armor. This is a 1 chaos item. 6 links are, I don't know, less than 1 exalt, I believe. But you need to spend some chromatics. I actually spent around 2 exalt. Maybe I was unlucky. Or the colors. Because we need 4 of colors. You can also maybe get Vorici Research White Coloring, you know, from another player in TFD, the Forbidden Throw Discord. So make sure you colored your body armor. This body armor actually got nerfed after the spell buffs, so we actually lost 1 plus totem, you know, +1 totem. But this is still probably the best budget body armor. None of the rares actually are better. I just checked like 10 exalt worth of body armors with +1 gems, aura effect, I don't know, those kind of stuff. 10 exalt, 15 exalt body armors. They are still worse. Because this provides spell totem support on its own, meaning that this is actually a 7 link body armor. Yeah, the downside of this, you actually get curses once your totems die. This is a common way to play totem builds. That's why we also use Adziri's Reflection Shield to counter this. Unaffected by curses. This is also a very good shield because it also provides effect of curse and also huge resistances. So in the end, you are immune to curses, actually unaffected by curses, and still get benefit from curses because you also use self-flagellation jewel, which provides damage per curse on you. So this is the synergy with that. Moving on with the weapon. So first of all, if you want a really good weapon, you need to craft one yourself because good results are mostly very expensive or doesn't even exist. Because that is how the rare weapon scepter or wand market in the game. That is always like that, alright? So first of all, let's take a look at the good stats. This is a cold spell, so any gem level that works with cold and also spells, so +1 cold spell, +1 old spells, so at least 1 gem modifier, let's say, for more DPS. Percentage spell damage or percentage cold damage, so some percentage damage. Blood cold damage, Blood lightning damage is not very good, but that can actually solve your shock problem, because we take Elementalist Ascendancy from Cyan for the 10% guaranteed shock. So maybe flood lightning damage if you can get one. If you cannot, put it somewhere else, let's say. Alright. For the suffixes, obviously cast speed is the best, and also crit multiplier, or also double damage. So in the end, your weapon should have most of these if you want a good one. So if you cannot find a good result, here is how to craft it. So the easiest way to craft these kind of stuff is to get a fractured scepter or wand. It doesn't matter. Just don't get daggers, because daggers are bad. Get a scepter or wand for the good implicits. Elemental damage, spell damage, penetration. There are some good scepter bases with penetration. So any good base with a fractured +1 gem modifier, spell or cold. If they are expensive, obviously you cannot do this right now, but at least you will learn how to craft these weapons for maybe another league. Maybe you will play a similar build later on. Alright, so here is how to do that. Get that fracture. After that, use Essence of Woe for that huge spell damage, because spell damage is the hardest thing to get. The higher tiers have such low weightings, it is near impossible to hit good stats at the same time with the spell damage. That's why you have to use a spell damage essence. Use the highest you can use, you know, depending on your budget. Just keep spamming the essence until you get the third prefix, which is gonna be cold damage to spells, lightning damage to spells, whatever that works for the build. For this build, it is obviously cold damage to spells, but again, for some reason, if you want to fix the shock issue from the weapon, if you get good lightning damage to spells, that can also be good for this build. But maybe you cannot sell that scepter later on, because no one will buy that with that situation. This is a, you know, this build needs a little bit lightning damage. Other builds do not need it. So that's why the best combination is spell damage and cold damage to spells at the same time. So you got the prefixes. Suffixes doesn't matter, because you can put those later on. Then you will put prefix cannot be changed from the crafting bench. It is like 2 exalt. After that, get help from a trusted, you know, higher rank of TFT Discord member. You know, just go for the Discord, harvest, want to sell. Just get a reforge, a rare with caster modifiers. Because we put prefixes cannot be changed, prefixes cannot be rolled. Once that guy uses that reforged caster modifiers, it will actually re-roll the suffixes. That way you will get cast speed. If you get a good cast speed, that's it. That weapon is actually enough. You also need a 1 open suffix. So if you couldn't do that, maybe you need to try one more time. Maybe waste another 2 exalts or whatever. But this way you get the cast speed, and with at least 1 open suffix you can put crit multiplier or double damage while focused. If you want to keep trying, just get Reforged Caster. Each attempt will obviously take at least 2 exalt, because you need to put the cannot change prefixes every time, again and again. And Reforge, I don't know, they are actually cheap, Reforged Casters. They are not even 1 exalt, I believe. And just try until you also get a crit multiplier or crit chance for spells maybe. But again, this build doesn't need crit strike chance. With the same gear setup, with the same flasks and everything, your character will have 100% crit strike chance. That's why the clips were recorded with 5 link, as I already explained at the start. You don't need any crit strike chance for this build. Any additional, let's say. And that sums up the weapon. The good weapon will be something like this in the end, if you bother doing that. The other pieces are super cheap and easy to acquire, by the way. This is the only thing that you need to focus on, because good weapons provide super nice DPS boost. Gloves. The only good DPS stat that you can get for cheaper, let's say, damage with hits against chilled enemies. You can also get the veiled gloves if you watched my Templar all content Ice Spear self-cast guide that I just put 1 or 2 weeks ago, let's say. You can also get focus cast speed, which is nice, but they are expensive to craft. So that's why this is the cheaper option, let's say. Damage with hits against shield enemies, put life resistances, maybe if your character still needs dexterity, stuff like that. I believe I don't need any attributes. I'm just checking in the path of building right now. None of my rings actually provide any attributes. Ah yeah, my boots have dexterity. Alright, this build needs a little bit of dexterity, so make sure at least one of your pieces provides some decent amount. It can also be a glove. Later on, You can use the new Influence Orbs, Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds to put some good implicits. Just pick anything you want, but the good ones are obviously chance to unnerve enemies for additional 10% damage. Maybe suppress spell. Maybe plus maximum resistances if you want to be tankier. Because totem builds are not super tank. I already invested into some good armor, block, those kind of stuff on this build. This is not a super squishy build. Normally most of the totem builds are super squishy, but this is not one of them, obviously. Because that's not how I play most of my builds, let's say. So yeah, maybe you can also get suppress spell. It is hard to get suppress spell on the talent tree, but maybe you can put some on your items, alright? So those are the good implicit and stats to focus on. Gloves, boots. This was super cheap, like 30 chaos or something, I don't know. Movement speed obviously is very nice. Resistance, life. I put dexterity because I needed that, and that's it. I didn't even do anything else. For the implicits, again, you can work on those if you want. Again, resistances. We are not doing any scorch, brittle, those kind of stuff. Maybe you can put a brittle ground. No, not brittle. Crit strike is already nice. Maybe scorch ground. If you bother moving through the monster, which is gonna be a little dangerous, because that is not something you want to do while playing a totem build. But maybe if you want some extra DPS, you can put scorch ground on your boots. I don't know, action speed, but again, maybe it is not even working because Tailwind, it seems, doesn't even work in the path of building for totems. I don't know, maybe it doesn't work. So just put some implicit, just check POE database website. Just depending on your budget, use the orbs, Searing Exarch, Embers, Icors, whatever they are called, and Eater of Worlds, and just put something on your boots. These are the cheap options. I wanted to keep this build cheap as possible, by the way. Only my weapon is a little bit expensive because I crafted it myself. Most of other pieces are under an Exalt. Next, Amulet, Ashes of Stars. Probably the best in slot for most of the builds right now. This is probably gonna get nerfed later on because this is a meta amulet. This is super cheap. The good ones are like 1 Exalt, 2 Exalt maybe, but the shit ones are 25 chaos. I just sold like 5 of them. I just corrupted all of them. Yeah, they are super cheap. So reservation efficiency, you don't need a maximum roll, but obviously try to get a good one. Just make sure you check your character in your own path of building. Don't make any mistakes. Because this build doesn't use any mana. If you can just reserve 100% of your mana, it is fine. You don't even need 1 mana. Because we use Energy Shield, thanks to the helmet that I explained at the start. The Warnock Diadem, because we have Eldritch Battery. So yeah, make sure you fix that reservation efficiency. Do not get a maximum roll. Do not overpay. You don't need it. Good quality is important. That's why I picked at 30% for additional DPS and all of that. Because quality obviously increases some DPS and other stuff on the active skill gems, which is Ice Spear, your auras, those kind of skills. That quality doesn't work for support gems. For the Anoint, I picked Disciple of Slaughter for Frenzy Charge. I also get 2 additional Frenzy Charges on my ring, so moving on to the next pieces. So in the end, this character has 3 Frenzy Charges, if you can manage to do that. They're up all the time because it is minimum Frenzy Charges. So if you want to put minimum Frenzy Charges on your rings for good DPS, your rings must have open suffixes. Alright, just craft them from the bench and that's it. The good stats on rings: cold damage, cast speed, life, crit multiplier, resistances, and if you still need dexterity or any other attributes. You can maybe also put chaos resist, obviously that is gonna be more expensive. For the DPS, you can pick elemental damage implicit for on opal rings. If you want more life, vermilion rings or coral rings. That's it. Also on shaper bases, there is cold damage against shield or frozen enemies. There is spell damage on crusader bases. So just try to get some DPS in the end. Crit multiplier from Essence Craft, maybe you can get maybe fractured rings and use Essence of Scorn or crit multiplier. So try to squeeze in some DPS, life and other good stats that I just mentioned. And finally, open suffix for minimum frenzy charge. This build doesn't need minimum, minus mana cost of skills, those kind of stuff. We don't care about mana cost at all. Alright. Final item, yeah. Belt. Again, Stygian vises, that is something that I always say, are good because they also have 1 socket. If you get a Stygian vise, this is the perfect place to put that lightning damage to spells or the 10% guarantee shock. unless you crafted your weapon with lightning damage to spells while essence crafting it. But again, I don't recommend it because it is near impossible to sell that weapon later on. But if you think that, or if you think that you are gonna play this build all the time, it doesn't matter because maybe you won't even sell that weapon back. But if you craft a good weapon like mine, it costs a lot. I'm talking a lot, because people don't do those kind of crafts. Lots of Exile on that weapon, alright, if you want to sell it back. It doesn't even cost that much. People just don't know how to craft the weapons. So yeah, you can make huge profit by crafting good spell weapons. So yeah, Stygian vise, nice. Life, resist. I just put chaos, resist, and life, and regeneration. Because totem builds cannot leech. Also doesn't have much recovery, that's why I picked regeneration. This was like a not maybe even one exile, I don't know. This was a super cheap shit belt. So normally, if you want more DPS, you can use Coward's Legacy. Because we are already getting curses and we are already unaffected, you know, the character is already unaffected by curses thanks to the Aziri's Reflection shield. You can actually get huge DPS by using Coward's Legacy, but you need to also get Pain Attunement Keystone on the talent tree. It is not far away, but my talent tree is not actually there. I need to spend at least 5 or 6 points to go for that. But it actually provides a couple of million DPS if you use this belt, because you will get counted as low life, and Pain Attunement obviously provides more spell damage when on low life. So a good synergy that sums up all the items, everything. I'm just gonna check the path of building real quick. Maybe show you a couple of things that I forgot to mention. Right now we are in path of building. I already showed you most of the gems. I forgot to color these, so they are gonna be updated later on. Already explained Ice Spear, those kind of stuff. These Awakened gems are super cheap. This league, Cold Pen was like 1 exalt. This is also like 1 or 2 exalt with the 5 level, I believe. Maybe 3 exalt at most. So cheap gems in the end. Ice Spear was default. If you have the budget, maybe Divergent can be better. It provides at least 1 million DPS, it seems. This is the total DPS, by the way, 22 million, because you need 5 totems, obviously. So make sure you tick full DPS and count 5 here. So with the Divergent, it actually 1 million more DPS. You can do that, because we also have Ashes of Stars Amulet. These kind of well, this also gets improved. So this says right now 40% pro speed, bam, 100% pro speed, or something like that. All right, these qualities actually gets boosted thanks to the amulet. 30% quality of all skill gems, but again, that is actually active skills. It doesn't work for the supports. Yeah, let's just continue. Obviously the auras are in our helmet, so let's just check the auras. I believe I haven't talked about these. Hatred, cold damage, obviously this is a cold build. Tempest shield for good block spell, and immunity to shock. I just went for some block on this character. 51 spell block, 25 attack block. I haven't invested into that much, because while playing a range build you mostly die to spell damage, and also in Maven invitations most range attacks are spell based, especially in Earth. So spell block is important. This is, by the way, without glancing blows. This is pure block. You won't get any damage with 51% chance. So yeah, as you see, I haven't even get this one. If you want more block, maybe you can also get these. Yeah, maybe something like this, I don't know. It doesn't worth 4 points if you ask me. I didn't pick those. My character is already high level. It is easy to get boost this league. People just boost 5 all the time, and it is super cheap compared to previous leagues, because it is super easy to access to emblems after the Atlas changes. So make sure you buy some boost, maybe spend like maybe at most 10 exalt to hit some good level. Just spend that currency that you are farming, alright? You can do Shaper farm for easy farm anyways. It is right now super efficient and rewarding to farm Shaper. So yeah, these are the rest of the auras. Determination for armor. So I just stacked armor and block at the same time. I haven't invested into much, obviously, max resistances. It is hard to do on this build. Also got some decent chaos to resist. So you don't actually get one-shotted by anything. This build is tanky enough for a ranged totem build. More than 4k life. It is enough. We also have 8% again mind over matter effect actually from the Hierophant notable ascendancy point, which is actually negating, you know, we just get hit by Inner Shield instead of the mana, because we also have Eldritch Battery, thanks to the Devouring Diadem Helmet. So that is another mitigation at the top of all these armor and block. And finally, Zealotry for spell damage. These are all in our helmet because this helmet has increased reservation efficiency. Golems, Sniper Mark, already mentioned, Frost Bomb. You can skip this later on if you want. But Path of Building for some reason doesn't, I believe, calculate, or maybe this is better. Minus 15. Awaken Cold Pan. It doesn't say anything. Maybe Frost Bomb is better, or maybe this doesn't work with this. Where is that? Where is Cyan? Yeah. Exposure you inflict applies an extra. Because maybe this says you inflict. It says you. Maybe it doesn't work with totems. That's why Frost Bomb is still maybe better. So maybe you need to use a Frost Bomb for more DPS. Because it appears that cold penetration is weaker. The 10% chance to inflict cold exposure. I believe I ticked this here. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you need to use Frost Bomb. Because I think Elementalist bonus doesn't work with the gem itself, this one. It seems like that because I lose DPS once I click this. So yeah, consider using a Frost Bomb if you are not that lazy. Because once you put your totems, you just need to put a Sniper Mark on the enemy. This is the curse, obviously. And use Frost Bomb, and that's it. You don't need to do anything else. Just move around and the boss will die in like 5 seconds top. Dash for mobility, vitality, obviously the rest of the auras. For regeneration and steel skin. Just put this on your left mouse button and you will just activate it automatically. This is just for some absorption. That's it. If there is anything else to explain here. Self-flagellation, already showed this. I believe that's everything you need to know about. I don't know if I should mention more stuff. Let's see, what is this? Yeah, already showed Forbidden Flashes. Maybe for the clusters. Let's just talk about the totem defenses, alright? Most people because skip this and they are like, my totems die a lot, why it is like this. Whenever I do a totem build, at least a couple of people come to me and say like their totems die all the time because they don't get these kind of, they just miss some these kind of resistance notables maybe points. So this is not a mistake, you need to do this. Totems gain plus 16 all elemental resistances. I believe there is more here or not. So yeah, normally totems doesn't have capped resistances. They do not copy your own resistances. They have their own separate resistances. That's why you need to invest into some resistance nodes on talent tree and maybe cluster jewels. So that's why I picked this. And also I'm using a cluster. This was cheap because no one gets defense for their totem builds. People just don't know how to do that. Ancestral preservation. Totems gain my plus 20. I always try to say minus for some reason. Plus 20. With that other one, the notable plus 36 right now. I believe totems normally have 40 resistances. This way they have cap resistance 76. Normally it is obviously 75. So the final point is also useless. So 76 resist on your totems, which is 75 obviously, that is the cap. Some physical damage reduction and chaos resist. So make sure you get that small passive here. And also ancestral preservation. Plus I picked sleepless sentries for free onslaught. Whenever you put your totem, you will get onslaught for 4 seconds, I believe. Make sure you refresh your totems, at least one totem, every 4 or 5 seconds if you want that perma onslaught. That's the combination I picked. This was super cheap, no one buys it. Forbidden Flame, obviously, Rain of Splinters. Yeah, this also works for spells. I was like, I did this build and I was like, okay, I think I'm done. And I just, I believe, clicked here. Jewel, bought by DPS, something like that. And I just saw it, I believe, like that. And I was like, what the fuck, how this even work? I thought that this was for attacks, but it appears that this also works for totems, you know, spells, let's say. Because it doesn't say any attack or something. This actually provides huge DPS. Make sure you get Rain of Splinters with some good roll, because it actually lowers the damage. So make sure you get the a good rolled one, alright? For the large cluster, I picked Blanket Snow, obviously the best for DPS. This is a 2 passive, so it was cheaper. And the Prismatic Heart, if your resistances are fine, I believe other combinations are cheaper. I don't go for 3 because they are super expensive. Cold builds are always expensive. The other cold builds, let's say. I believe I missed this. For medium, repeater, projectile damage and cast speed. This is super important. Streamline, proj damage, proj speed. Maybe you can use eye to eye because it provides more projectile damage if that works. I don't know the range, obviously. Who knows? Do you know, if you are familiar in POE, there are lots of memes about the nearby sentence, you know, the wording nearby. If something says nearby, who knows the radius? You know, if you are familiar with those memes. I'll just show you that medium cluster and that's gonna be it. Proj damage, because I believe that provides more DPS. Yeah, this one. Proj damage plus more proj damage with hits against nearby enemies. But what is nearby, you know? How many meters or whatever? I don't know. So I will just also add this to the path of building so you can see that. Repeater, eye to eye. That's it. That's gonna be here. You can just check it later on. I will probably also add some different Watcher's Eye options here in case you cannot afford something. But normally, because you need to cap your crit strike chance. If your crit strike is not 100% on the second form of the projectiles, try to get a crit strike Watcher's Eye. This is like 3 exalt right now. And let's just also put this here. If you have the budget, obviously go for double. But they are like at least 20 or 30 exalt, I believe. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new to the channel. If you have any build ideas, because the league is coming to an end soon, maybe I will start doing more cheaper builds these days. Because I put lots of all content expensive builds these days. And that is something that I want to do this league. So that's why maybe I will do some cheaper builds, because the league is coming to an end. Obviously there are more than one mount, I believe. But most of the people obviously stopped playing. So maybe I will do more cheap builds for you guys to, you know, have fun, maybe try some stupid shit. So make sure you make some comments in my Discord, alright? Come to my Discord, chat with me and other players. Thanks for watching. I will see you later. Bye bye.